Hello, I'm Grin and welcome to this, the first episode of Washer Dryer. Since I have done and am doing multiple challenge series in Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, I figure it's about time to do a series in the original game. The idea of this series was inspired by the fact that when you activate the cheat code Wishy-Washy Banjo, Mumbo warns you not to come crying to him if you're unable to get through all the wells because the washing machine is not as good as the Bear and Bird are. Well, not to sound too much like Stinko Man, but that sounds to me awfully a lot like some sort of challenge. And so, what exactly is the challenge I speak of? Well, rather simply, from the point of transforming into the Washer Dryer, the entire game must be completed as only the Washer Dryer. I'm going to try to keep it to one episode per level, with the first episode, this one, being Spiral Mountain sort of, but before we get to that, we're actually currently committing a bit of in medias res, so let's quickly jump into the past and then catch up to exactly where we are. That's right folks, it's like Fight Club, or The Odyssey. There are actually quite a few requirements you need to do before you can actually turn into the washing machine, and since the entire point of this challenge is to do as much as you can as the washing machine, I tried to activate the Wishy-Washy Banjo cheat with only having done the literal minimum of what needs to be done by Banjo in order to make the transformation. So what is that minimum? Well, firstly, and rather obviously, you need to unlock Mumbo's Mountain, which in order to do so, you need at least one Jiggy. And since at this point in the game there's only one Jiggy available, you're not exactly left with too much of a dilemma. So grab that there Jiggy, slam it into the podium and watch the door swing open. Now that you're in Mumbo's Mountain, there are two things that you need. Well, actually 52 things if we're being technical, and also 2 skills you need to unlock. So I suppose if we're trying to be entirely pedantic, you actually need 54 things. Once you enter Mumbo's Mountain, there are 54 things you need. The first 50 of the 54 things you need are 50 music notes in order to unlock the first music note door, which is protected by a spell that is 50 music notes strong. Because I, as I said earlier, only want to collect the bare minimum, the first 20 of these music notes I gathered were as I beelined my way up the mountain in order to get to Stonehenge and learn my first move. That first move is, of course, probably the move that I used most in the entire game, Talon Trot, which you need to utilize to get up the slope, which actually leads to the first music note door. Once you're done talking to Bottles, collect a couple more music notes and then head straight over to the other side to, well, once again, talk to Bottles. This is of course where you learn the move Beak Buster, which I always call Ground Pound because, let's be honest, it's clearly just a ground pound. This move is also necessary to unlock the cheat because in order to actually enter the cheat code, you have to ground pound letters on the floor in the castle, and so without it, you're not exactly going to get very far in this challenge. Now that that's done and learned, collect the rest of the notes needed to bring you up to 50 on your way down to Conga, and once you get down there, immediately steal Conga's orange and give it straight to Chimpy. This is one of the 2 necessary Gs that I chose to collect for 3 very simple reasons. Firstly, you need to go down there anyway, because you need to learn how to lay eggs. That's right, you actually need 3 moves, so I counted wrong. It's in fact 55 things you need, not 54. I apologize, I never learned to count. But that's one of the 3 reasons, with the second and third of which being kind of tied together. You see, when I tested out this idea to make sure that it was at least playable, this is pretty much the first thing that I encountered, which I assume Mumbo was warning us about. You see, as the Washer Dryer, when you get the orange from Congo's tree, it doesn't actually register as you having it when you get close to Chimpy, and so you can't give Chimpy the orange, which means he doesn't get off the platform, which means the platform doesn't rise up, which means you can't get the Jiggy from shooting at Congo, you can't ground pound the Gruntilda switch, and you can't get the Ekum Bokum token without picking up the Ekum Bokum token, triggering the Grunty switch, or taking down Congo. Or before you actually do the transformation, you're going to start this challenge 3 Jiggies down. So since you're going to be in the neighborhood anyway in order to learn how to shoot eggs, and you need the 2 Jiggies regardless, you might as well choose this one. So once that's all done and dusted, it's time to leave the world, climb a small slope, open a door, unlock a cove, and head down to the beach. Once you've entered Treasure-Trove Cove, head straight down to Leaky while, once again, carefully avoiding any collectibles, because of course, they're there to be collected when you're actually the Washer Dryer. Poop eggs into his head cavity in order to drain a lake that's 10 meters away, because what are friends for, and head on into the sandcastle. Once there, do the challenge, kill the crab, collect the Jiggy, exit the world, head on back down to Spiral Mountain because we're going home. Once there, stand on the carpet and look up at the picture of Bottles hanging above the fireplace, which will activate the secret puzzle hidden mini-games, which after completing each one gives you a different cheat code in order to enter into the sandcastle floor. Each of these 7 puzzles is increasingly difficult, and unfortunately the washer-dryer cheat code Wishy-Washy Banjo is the last of all 7. And even more unfortunately, you have to actually do the puzzle in order to enter the code, so it's not good enough to just know that it's Wishy-Washy Banjo, you have to actually beat the challenge first, and even more disappointing, after you exit the game, you will no longer be the washer-dryer, and you have to enter the code again, which, beforehand, you once again have to complete all 7 puzzles. I didn't realize this until I went back to continue this challenge, so if you do want to attempt this challenge, maybe do it on a day that you have a lot of spare time, and try to complete it in 1 or 2 sittings, so you don't have to just keep on going back and doing these darn puzzles. Once you have completed the 7 extraordinarily frustrating puzzles, it's time to head back to the sandcastle, enter the cheat code, and become the hero that Spiral Mountain deserves. You're now Washer-Dryer, a combination washing machine and dryer with a nothing in its backpack. You still have all of the moves and abilities that Banjo-Kazooie have, and you can still do basically the same things, but it does feel a bit more difficult to judge attacks and jumps simply because the hit detection box is way off. You're way bigger than Banjo-Kazooie were, but you're still using the control setup for Banjo-Kazooie, and obviously there will be glitches that happen later on, like, as I said, the one I encountered when I was testing to see if this challenge was even doable. Spiral Mountain is, of course, just a tutorial level, so there's not really much to do there, aside from collecting the honeycombs giving you the extra life point. And so while our hero the washer-dryer is running around doing that, I'm going to take advantage of not really having to explain what's going on the screen at all, and do a little bit of housekeeping. Firstly, when I come up with an idea like this, I usually check in YouTube to see if anyone's already done it, to make sure I'm not just simply reinventing the wheel. And so when doing so for this series, I found that a gentleman by the name of Antlion Alpha has in fact beaten me to the punch by about 4 years. I did, however, at random select one of his videos in his series, I think it was episode 6 or something, watched about 20 seconds of it to make sure that we were at least doing something different. I didn't want to watch much of it because I want to do the challenge myself, and so therefore I'd like to go into it knowing as little as possible. And judging by that very small amount I watched, I feel that we do have very different styles. His was more of a full play let's play, where mine is heavily edited with the commentary being done in retrospect, and so hopefully I can bring something extra to the table. But with this video coming towards the end, if you're feeling like you've still not had enough Wishy-Washy Banjo in your life, I'll put a link to his series in the description of this video below. And if you're simply hungry for more episodes of this series, the plan is to upload it every fortnight, with 1 episode of Bots and Drones going up 1 week, and the next week 1 episode of Washer-Dryer going up, followed once again by Bots and Drones, followed once again by Washer-Dryer. That is, as I said, the plan. It's a bit of a busy time in the Grin studio, so no promises that the plan will actually go as planned, but that's what I'm hoping to achieve. And so with that brief housekeeping out of the way, and the last of the honeycombs now happily in my possession, it's time for our hero to head towards, and of course climb up the landmark for which Spiral Mountain is probably named for, you guessed it, the actual Spiral Mountain itself. And in doing so, the heroic combined washing machine drying machine is not only heading further away from the ground, but indeed ever closer to its destiny. And so, with all of that said and done, as always, thanks for watching, and until next time, I have been and still am Grim Grindle, and you have been watching Washer-Dryer: A Journey Begins. Tune in not next week but the week after, in which we hopefully will return to Mumbo's Mountain, but this time with considerably less fur and feather.